Today, what I'm going to speak about is social media and philately, and in particular, how to set up a social media plan and some of the questions that you need to ask yourself when you're going online with social media. So I've been to a lot of talks and forums about philately moving into social media. And one of the questions that seems to come up a lot is that people understand that they need to be in social media, but they don't really understand which social media they should be joining, what's important, or why. So it's going to be a little bit of an in-depth deep dive session. So some of the questions might seem really dry, but I'll try and explain some of the purposes around them, and you can use these type of questions to start forming a social media plan for your organization. So just as an introduction, philatelic organizations now are much more aware of social media than they were 5 years ago. So when I started with the Rhodesian Study Circle, there were some out there, but there really wasn't a huge intake. After COVID and during COVID, the landscape has changed. So people now are aware that there is a benefit to it. They do need to get on board, but as I mentioned, they just don't know how to. Understanding what social media platform to use causes confusion. There are so many out there. Which one do you need to join? How many do you need to join? Do you need to be on all of them? And most organizations that do have those social media platforms already, they're not really effectively using them to their advantage. And again, it comes back to not really having a plan about what they want to achieve out of it. So again, we'll cover off some of this a bit later. As I've always mentioned, just having a social media account doesn't automatically increase membership. It won't bring in new philatelists to an organization, but there are other benefits of it. Social media does need to be consistently maintained. So that means that someone needs to post regularly. Now that can be up to you, whether that's going to be weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. You wouldn't want to push it out more than a month, but you want to be getting content up regularly. Most organizations don't have social media plans as part of their reporting. So a lot of our organizations do have to do reports. There's usually an annual report. Maybe some of the small clubs don't, but definitely the medium to large ones will, depending on their location in the world. But they don't have a social media plan, and it doesn't form part of their reporting. And one thing I will also add is that social media takes 5 years to establish. So if you're starting today, it's going to take 5 years for it really to have any type of return on investment. The first 2 years, you'll see a gradual uptake, but kind of year 3, you might find it's absolutely very flat. It's not going anywhere. You kind of have to work through that. You've got to persevere to get through to years 4 and 5. And by 5, you should start seeing the results. So it is a long-term investment, and you do need a plan to get yourself through those 5 years. So the first questions I'm going to go through is about actually knowing your organization and taking a critical look at it. So when we're looking at understanding your organization, what is the purpose of your organization? Like if you are you a club? Are you a study group? Are you a society? What is actually the purpose? Are you there for American stamps? Are you there for Central African stamps? Are you there for Indian stamps? You need to know what your purpose is and what your value is. What is your mission or your vision statement? You can have one, you may not have any, but you should have either one of those. So what you intend to achieve as an organization. So it might be, we want to be the premier organization for airmail, or premier organization for animals on stamps. And that you need that to work towards. You also need to look at where are you now? So where are you sitting? Is your membership dwindling? Is it just older people in there? Do you have younger people? Are you online? Is it thriving? Is it not thriving? And you need to be honest with yourself. Where are you now? I think a lot of organizations probably a few years ago would have just said they're dwindling. Other organizations aren't though, and generally those are the ones that have already started on the social media journey. When you put your plan together, you want to know where you're going to be in 5 years' time. So that could be where you would like your membership to be, how many international people you may have, how many locals, just type of a concept of where you want to be. Now, don't go ridiculous and say you want 10,000 new members and you're a local club, because it ain't going to happen. I find that generally study groups, which is I would say a medium-sized organisations, they probably get about 10 new members a year at the moment. So that should give you some idea. If you're a local club, it might be maybe 1 or 2 new members a year. If you're a large organisation, you might be looking at, maybe a couple of thousand each year. Depends on the size. But where do you want to be in 5 years' time? The next one is understanding your partners. So who are your partners? Which other stamp organisations do you work with or could work with? Do you work with dealers? Do you advertise at all? Is there any requirements that those partners have of your organisation? Are they expecting to give anything back to you, or to you to them, etc., backwards and forwards? So what are they requiring out of you? Are there any needs or wants that you may not be meeting? Are people or members asking for things they're not getting? Is there people online who may not be members but may be engaging already in one of your online accounts? Is there something they're asking for and you're just not providing it? Do your partnerships currently work? So if you're paying money to someone, are you actually getting anything back for that? Is it actually working for you? Why do you promote what partners do you promote and why? Again, there may be something there that you need to deep dive into as to, well, why are we actually promoting them if it has nothing to do with our organisation or we're not really getting any benefit? So do you pay or are paid for promotional partners? How do you measure return on investment? So how do you know that this money that you're paying out is actually earning anything? And it can be the same for them as well. If they're advertising in your journals or your online websites, whatever it may be, what are they getting out of it? Are you actually delivering on that? And do your offerings compete or complement your partners? So it's an important one. So if you are having people that advertise with you, is it actually of any benefit to your members or potential members in the future, and also vice versa? So it's really understanding your partnerships and how you're working with other people. The reason I raise this, it might sound a little bit on the sly, but when you go to social media, you're going to start to need to form relationships online and promote some of these partners. And if you're not, there's an opportunity to promote. So if you are going to set it up with, say, a dealer, well, you want to work together with the dealer online, whether that's advertising, whether that's sharing stock that they have with members. There's a partnership there that can work. So you need to work out who your current partnerships are. You may not have any. There may not be any. Additionally, you might even have partnerships with other types of organizations or groups. So you might have partnerships with historical groups. You might have partnerships with postcard groups. You might have relationships with letter writing groups, with local communities. Just work out what those partnerships are, who you're involved with, who you're interacting with. Understanding your membership. This is an important one. So what are the demographics of your current membership? So we do know that a lot of members are senior members, not so much younger, but that doesn't apply to everyone, and it depends on your organisation. What are the key offerings of your organisation? This is one that's always a challenge. If someone's going to pay money to join your club, society, whatever, what are they actually getting in return? It's something to consider. Now, you may have some offerings, like a lot of clubs will have like access to libraries, journals. It could be events, meeting events. Auctions is another one. So work out what your key offerings are and what could you be missing as well. So what extra things that you may be able to offer. So some clubs don't do auctions, and that might be a way to go, because club auctions are actually becoming a very big draw card the philatelic organisations. The organisations have access sometimes to very good stock that sometimes dealers won't have. Some members of the public are more comfortable dealing with organisations rather than dealers. So if you're not doing auctions, again, it could be something that you look at. Is it easy to join an industry standard? So you'll notice that I'll mention industry standard quite a bit as we progress along. When I mean industry standard, I don't particularly mean Stamp Club against Stamp Club. I mean, what is it against other types of clubs and societies, whether horse racing club, sports club, whatever it may be? Well, how do they get people to join? Is it easy? Is it hard? Are you still using paper? Are you still requesting people to send in paper forms with a paper check, which is not industry standard? Everyone these days is click and pay. If you're not using click and pay, it might be something that you need to put into your plan to consider in the future. Does your membership reflect value for money and of industry standard? Kind of covered that. But if you're charging, say, $40 for a digital journal, and everyone else is offering $10 for a digital journal, you may not be meeting industry standard then. It's something to consider. And also when it comes to membership, once you go online, you become international. You're not local anymore. You're not national, you are international. Anyone in the world may want to join. So you have to consider, if your offerings include access to a library, but the library is only available in your country, in your state, that may actually not reflect as good value for money for potential new members. So you might need to have a look at a differentiated approach. Does your organisational offerings consider international members and consider any barriers, limitations to these offerings? So again, if you're having maybe a Zoom meeting, that's part of your makeup, but it's at a time that doesn't kind of consider other places in the world. So some of the big ones, maybe like Australia, UK, but you're based in the US, like, is there a time that you can work out that maybe can suit both areas or different areas? And also, as I mentioned above, and it's one of the things I come across a lot, is I can't access what I'm paying for because the offerings aren't available where I am. So really have a look. If someone outside of your club, whether it's national or local, if they can't access it, then why are they paying for it? Something to consider. So that's kind of looking at what makes up some of the questions for you to consider in the makeup of your clubs and your organisations in moving forward. May not apply to everyone. You might have a small club, some of that might apply. You might have a medium society or study group. Different things apply, but there's still questions you should look at, consider, and write them down. The next section I'm going to have a look at is about knowing your social media. So when you start putting together your social media plan, you want to have a look at what social media platforms do you currently use. Are you using Facebook? Are you using Twitter, Instagram, TikTok? What are the ones that you're actually using? Are any of those platforms stagnant, which means that nothing's actually happening on them? Now, that could be because you're not posting content, or it could be that no one's engaging with the content. They just don't find it of interest. Or it could be that you're not promoting the platform very well. And that brings to the next question. Do you promote your social media effectively? Is it on your website, if you have a website? Do you talk online about other platforms that you are engaged with? Do you put it in journals that you can chat or meet up online in those various platforms? I've been to websites where it doesn't mention that they've got, say, a Facebook group, but they actually do have a Facebook group. So if someone hits that website, they just don't know. So how are you promoting them? What are the subscriber numbers for each of the platforms that you currently use? It's a metric that you should have in your reporting to say, you might say, okay, on Facebook group, we have 300 members. Facebook page, we might have 10 likes or 10 followers. TikTok, we might have 2. You want to put those metrics in place. You want a starting point to move forward. So have a look at what the subscriber numbers are. What has been the growth over the per year for the last 5 years? Now, if you're just starting, obviously you start at day one. But if you've been going for a while, just go back for the last 5 years. Most of the platforms have some type of access to analytics that tells you about demographics, how many people are liking things, how many people are viewing posts or content that you're uploading. And just have a look, has that grown at all over the last 5 years? If you don't have access to that information, that's fine. As I mentioned, as of say it was today, just start recording it. So in every annual report, you put down how many figures they are. I used to do this for the Rhodesian Study Circle. So year one, we put, oh, we had this many and that many. And then we just, every year we would say, well, our social media engagement has gone up or it's flatlined, whatever it may be. And we just report that as part of our annual meetings, annual AGMs and stuff. Once you do understand that type of stuff, you can look at what social media accounts provide the most traffic for you. So which one users most engaged with? And maybe what are your top 3 to 5 topic drivers? Now, this might change a little bit on the nature of the philatelic organization. But say you're American Topical Association or you're a thematic association, you might want to work out if you're posting content about cats and that's just driving traffic, you might want to keep that as a regular core update to keep those people engaged. If you're an airmail society and you're doing Zeppelins, and Zeppelins are really popular and they drive the traffic to your platform, again, work out, should you be posting more content of that? Also keep an eye out for what emerging popular topics are. So that's keeping an eye on peers within the social media platform. So that's other philatelic content creators to see, is there anything that's starting to take off? So for example, hashtag Philately was one that kind of started and then took off. And hashtag Extreme Philately, sorry, I'm thinking of Graham's channel. Hashtag Extreme Philately, that kind of took off, and that's actually extremely popular now on Instagram. It's how people are engaging. So if you've got a club or society and you're seeing this as an emerging topic, you might want to go back and go, this is not something that we as a club are actually offering, and maybe we should have a look into it. Other ones include post crossing, letter writing, just the old time letter writing. There's a lot of content creators out there who simply write and post letters to keep that hobby going and that skill. So keep your eyes out, regularly check on what your peers are doing. And as I mentioned, do you report on social media in your annual reporting? So that's quite easy, either yes or no, and if not, then you should be if you're going to enter this space. The next one is knowing your audience. So as I said, you can go into most of your accounts. You can usually connect websites up to Google Analytics, for example. Instagram will tell you demographics. Facebook will tell you demographics of the people who are actually engaging with your social media accounts. How many male, how many female, the different age brackets starting from, I think it's from like under 14 all the way up to plus 90. You can start building a picture of who's using your social media account, and then perhaps look at, well, who's rocking up to our clubs and our organizations. And if there's a mismatch, then it's kind of starting to give you an indication that maybe your offerings are not up to date or are not, the people online are not seeing value in them. So you can start working out what you actually need to change or what you need to put in place to bring those people in. Do you capture social media details of new members? So if a new member does join up, do your forms actually capture, do you have a Twitter account? Do you have it like Twitter X? Do you have Facebook? Do you have YouTube? Do you have TikTok? Because that might give you an idea of where you can start tracing down new members. Do you invite members with social media accounts to join your platforms? So a lot of the online platforms, they will have people who are not part of clubs, and I would say a good majority of them are not part of a club or an organization, etc. But they actively engage with the platform, and so that kind of gives you that they're potential members, and there's something that the club needs to do to get them over the line. Now, that could be anything from just offering a free membership for a year. It could be offering, like, a digital membership really doesn't cost an organisation anything. The digital journal doesn't. I know the North Toronto Stamp Club, they do a mail out. You've got the Korean Stamp Society, they're all free. But yeah, you might be able to give them an introduction where they then see value and then continue to join. So that's, do you know who your active contributors are? And it can also be members as well. So if there's members that you have that are actively posting, they may be able to help out with giving you advice on where to look for new members or where to expand your reach. And as I mentioned, do your international visitors understand us? So one of the keys I have, again, in the online space is that you may put APS. That doesn't mean everyone in the world knows what APS means. So obviously people with a bit of experience will know it's American Philatelic Society, but that doesn't mean that everyone does. Not everyone knows what the RPSL is. So it's making sure that you explain things so that anyone who visits your site understands what you're about, doesn't need to go through jargon, abbreviations, acronyms, all that kind of stuff. They know exactly what they're after, and you're promoting yourself as such. The next part is understanding your security requirements. So part of this is, do you have a style? I've put in there, do you have a style guide or other guidelines in place? So has your organization actually got almost like a set of rules that says, if someone is responsible for managing or moderating a channel, is there a specific way that they need to write things? Is there a specific way that they need to format things, etc.? It might sound a little bit nitpicky, but it is actually very helpful, especially if you've got people moving in and out of the space, taking on roles, which a lot of organizations do. We have volunteers come in, we have volunteers that leave. It keeps a consistency on what they're expected to do when they go on social media. Do you have records of the administrators and moderators? So who's actually in control? I usually always recommend that people like presidents, vice presidents, whatever hierarchy you have in your organization, should have some level of access to everything, including all passwords. They should have a record of all passwords. So if something happens, you know who's responsible, who to go to, because things will go wrong. Things happen. It's life. And that, again, next question will be, do you have records of passwords and usernames? So what's your account name? What's the username to get in? What's the password? And where does the default password go to? So if someone forgets the password, which always happens, whose address is it going to go to for them to reset it? So it's something you need to put in your plan. Do you have a backup plan if there should be a failure? So what happens, for example, if your website fails? Have you kept a backup? Do you have a regular backup plan? Do you back it up, say, monthly or weekly, whatever it may be? For me, like my page on Facebook, my digital philatelist page just got suspended again. Don't know why. Just the AI that works in Meta suspended it, so it's not accessed. So I have a group as a backup. So if that fails, I've still got a group to work with, which is what I do, because it happens to the world, AI. And do you comply with data protection laws and protect your members' privacy? So I know that there's some organizations will actually put new member details into their journal. You need to be kind of careful because we don't know where those journals will end up and whether or not they actually breach any privacy laws. Data security is obviously a big thing in Europe. It's big in Australia here. And I'm sure it would be in the US as well and in most countries. So if you're printing people's details, you probably want to make sure that you've got consent to put it into a journal that potentially could go out to the public, and they have access to those details. So you need to, if you haven't, just understand what the data protection laws are around your members' data. So they're the questions that, sorry, they're the questions that you really should be considering and putting together as a social media plan moving forward. So for, say, next 5 years. But once you've got all those questions, that's going to start forming the basis of, well, what social media platforms do I actually need to use? So there's probably 4 that I look at the moment, and I'll go through them, and I'm going to give more of an industry standard approach rather than a philatelic approach. So one of the critical ones that you should have, it's a must-have these days, is a website. Website's the key component for a modern philatelic organization. If you don't have a website, there's really not much of an excuse these days. If you can get on an iPhone, you can get on a computer, you can get a website up and happening very quickly. There's a lot of free resources out there. I did a talk today about using WordPress. WordPress has 2 versions. There's a paid version and there is a free version. If you just want a very light, basic, no frills website, you just get a WordPress free website. There's templates there. You don't need to do anything. It's like using a Word document. So if you can use MS Word, you can use the website. You don't need to code. You just need to get something up there. Obviously, as your website or your society gets larger, you'll want to start moving into something probably a little bit more professional and actually pay for it. But websites don't cost a lot to run, but you can get free versions. Now, an important thing with websites is that visitors will only spend 3 seconds to determine if they will stay or leave. And I don't care what people say. I've had arguments with people over this one. It is only 3 seconds. And that's an industry standard. Any website owner, any business, organization, corporation, whatever you want to call it, knows that if they don't grab the attention within 3 seconds, they're going to lose that visitor. And that's really important, especially for philatelic websites that tend to go on a huge trip of writing about the history and who runs the organization, and everything's on the front page. People aren't going to read it. They do not have the attention span when online. There's a very limited attention span that you can tap into in the online space. So if you've got a website at the moment and you can't read it and get the gist of what it's about in 3 seconds, then you want to look at how to move the information away from that page. Information must be concise and call the visitor to action and deliver on the organization's offerings. So you've got 3 seconds. They want to know that they've got to the right page. So, this is the Philatelic Society for the Bahamas. You don't want to then waffle about stuff. So you want to call them to action. So rather than putting all this stuff at the start, one of the sentences that's really good to use is join now to get access to, and then you can start listing what your accesses are, but the call to action is right at the start. So there's some websites I've seen where they have a lot of banners and everything at the top, and you have to scroll and scroll and scroll just to get to something like join, like the main purpose, join. So the information needs to be concise and it needs to get to the point very quickly and call the visitor to action. The writing style and presentation also needs to be consistent with industry standards, not philatelic literature standards. So writing a book and writing a website page are completely different approaches. So you don't want these long flowery titles that the philatelic literature gets. You need it to be concise. So go have a look at, maybe a museum's website, see what they have on their first page, a big museum in your area. Go have a look at maybe a business, a large business, see what they put on the front page. They're not going to put long flowery language or that, they're going to get to the point. You need to do the same with your philatelic website. The website is a critical one. I think it's really, really important. The next critical one, based on data that I've looked at for the last 10 years, is Facebook is the second most critical social media platform for any philatelic organizations. Now, you do need to consider whether you need a page or a group, and that's, I would recommend, maybe based on organizational size. Pages don't allow engagement. Pages are really about you posting information. Groups are about social engagement, allowing people to post discussions, post images, and that backwards and forwards. Meta have changed pages a little bit over the last couple of years. It's really moving towards business. I don't think they're probably as effective as they used to be. I think groups really now are the way to go. They're easier to maintain and monitor. There's more people in them, but you need to kind of, again, have a look at your social media, see what your engagement is with one or the other, maybe try one, try two, see which one you get the most traffic through, and then make a decision about moving forward. So generally, some of this has actually come from studies, by the way. So if it reads a little bit weird, it is from actually studies or from online information available. So consumers will engage with Facebook before they buy a product or service. So it's more than likely someone will be on Facebook before they join your club. So be something to consider if you don't have a Facebook group or page. When you upload media, try and put your media into albums and title it appropriately. So you can actually load, there's an album where you can, or photos, you can create an album and then you can put all the liked photos into it. If you title that properly and put your all liked photos together, there's a search function that you can use in Facebook now within the group or within the page, and people can actually look for what they're after. So it's a really good way to actually organize information rather than just having all these photos all over the joint. So it could be good if you're having an upcoming event and you're advertising, you can put it into one folder, you can pin it to the top of the page or group. Allow other philatelic or related pages or groups to join your page and vice versa. So again, you want to connect, you want to network with other organizations that are online. You do have to go into settings to do this. You have to allow pages and groups to join. A lot of the and that was a change a couple of years ago. A lot of philatelic pages and groups at the moment don't have that turned on. So I can't share content with people who follow me and vice versa. So they're losing exposure that way. It's in settings. So if you haven't looked at your settings, go in there, go into the general settings and just work through everything to make sure that it's actually going to work for you rather than against you. Establish rules and guidelines and pin them. So Facebook does have pre-established guidelines. You can things like no profanity, treat everyone with courtesy and respect, et cetera. Make sure that you've enabled those. Select the ones that you feel are relevant to you and get them pinned up there so people can refer to them. As I mentioned, check your group settings and also your preferences, including auto admin options. So the Facebook having added to groups and auto admin options. So there's certain things they will look and filter out. So every now and then there's spam on Facebook. So this year we went through our pornography spam, shoe spam, cleaning spam. The auto admin will just filter those out, and the more that content is reported back, their AI engines will make the adjustments to it. Check your profanity. I always have mine that no profanity is allowed at all. So if it picks it up, it just stops the person from commenting. And member approval as well. Now, member approval is with a little caution. If you're going to turn on member approval, you need to monitor it daily in order to make sure that you're approving members, because some groups you sit for weeks before someone approves it, sometimes months, and that's just not good enough. Like, people won't stay, they'll just move on to the next group. I usually look for some key things when I'm approving people, and that can be things like Facebook will show you the groups that they belong to. So if they're similar groups or they're in the similar area, etc., some type of commonality. You can turn off whether it's a new page. So if it's a new profile, if it's a new profile, you can actually stop them from joining. So say profiles need to be 3 months or more before you allow them to join. You can do things like that. You don't want to make joining hard, but you just want to make sure that you're monitoring it and that it's safe. The other thing you can do as well is, if you want to keep it open, which is usually my preference, you can also put on post approval, which means no one can post anything without an admin or moderator's approval. But when you do that, you can say, okay, the content is safe. And so therefore I approve that person to just continually post. You don't need to approve them for every post. So I do that in my my Philatelist group because we had so much spam. I just turn that on, and then if I know it's a club or society and it's someone that I know online, they can just post. I just approve them for everything. Next one's YouTube. So YouTube is beneficial. I wouldn't say it's critical, but it's definitely highly beneficial to clubs and society. The thing is the best performing videos only go for 7 to 15 minutes, and what gets uploaded at the moment tends to go for a good hour. Now, there's nothing wrong with 1 hour videos. Some people pull me up on this. There's nothing wrong with that if the content is engaging. But what I recommend that you do is actually have a look in your demographics in YouTube if you are uploading videos and see at what time do people start dropping out. So YouTube will tell you people are watching it for 5 minutes and then all of a sudden they drop out. They leave the video, the engagement's gone. So if you're presenting anything and you're uploading, monitor that, because what you want is you on YouTube, especially if you want to get your club monetized on there, they need to be engaged. They need to keep watching. They need to like. They need to subscribe, etc. If the videos do go long, I would recommend, especially on complex topics or multiple topics, break them up into parts. So I know that there's some channels where they'll upload a members meeting and it's like 6 different programs in the one, and it goes for like 1.5, sometimes 2 hours, and it's just too long. Just cut them up. You can get editing programs that are not too hard to use, probably for around about, say, 59 Australian dollars, roughly 60 Australian dollars. Some are free if you want to use free ones, and just break them up. Give them a break between each presentation to allow you to edit them out and break them up. But yeah, definitely break them up into multiple parts and keep an eye on how long your engagement is on your videos. Regular and consistent uploads are more effective than bulk uploads. So if you're going to upload videos and say it's monthly, and make sure there's like every last Sunday of the month, there's a new video, because people will tune back to check. But if you're doing haphazard videos, they don't work as well. So a lot of the good content creators, they upload at a certain time on a certain day. So they prep all their videos, they set it to upload, and then when that time comes, the video's up, and that's when it goes. So make sure they're regular and they're consistent. Your titles need to be fit for YouTube and for Google searches. So again, avoid philatelic literature style. Some of the pitfalls that I see is things like 14th of May, 2024, Zoom meeting, and then something about the title. Well, YouTube's going to work out 14th of May. It's not going to worry about what you said at the end. So you need to make sure that those titles are going to draw people in straight away, and that YouTube is going to push them up in the scheme of things, in their recommendations. So if it's a long philatelic literature style that someone's presenting, ask them to cut it down. It's not a book. This is not a book. So ask them to cut it down. The video description is another problem. It should be concise and contain relevant links. The first 200 words, the most critical. The first 200 words. There are some that channels that write absolutely nothing, and I'll just put video, Zoom meeting, something along those lines. It's not helping them out whatsoever. The other ones write war and peace. They literally tell everyone what's in the video. You don't want to do that either. You want people to watch the video. That's the whole point, watch the video. So the first 200 words are really critical. So if you're uploading YouTube videos, the description that goes with the video, make sure that the first 200 really tell the story of what that video is about and what audience that you're trying to draw in to make it happen. The next one, and probably the last one that I would recommend at the moment as beneficial, is Instagram. Now, on Instagram, hashtags are critical, absolutely critical, but they must be used wisely, but they are very critical. So I've given a little example here. So where I've gone, I can only half see it, sorry everyone, but like check out the one down below, which is just check out the Bahamas stamps from 1954. If you post that on Instagram, it's not going to do much for you. However, if you take all your keywords, Bahamas, stamps, Bahamas stamps, Bahamian stamps, stamp collecting, stamp collections, philately, philatelist, and hashtag those. It literally brings all the posts together that someone has used those hashtags. So what it does is it promotes the content. So when people look on Instagram, they look for the hashtag, they get all the images that relate to that hashtag. So you really want to make sure that you're using them. It's really simple to do. Just go through, look for the main words that are going to stick out. Don't worry if they're not philatelic, as we got here, Bahamas, not philatelic. But what you can actually get is you'll get people from the Bahamas may suddenly see your stamps from the Bahamas, and that can engage a whole new conversation. You'll be amazed at some of the conversations that you can have with non-collectors or collectors. Try and use use high quality photographs that tell a story. Don't just put on blurry photos, photos that aren't quite on center. Try and make sure that they're high quality. There's a lot of good photographers taking pictures of stamps at the moment, and they put backgrounds on there, and they do the extreme philately where they're taking it against the original image across the world, or they'll do up certain designs around it. So you're really competing with those type of content creators. Instagram is really good for all the younger crowd. So there's a lot of younger people on there. So when I say younger, under 35, but you will get people as young as 14, 15 on there that post regularly. And it's really good. It's just another way of exhibiting stamp collections, but in a totally online format. Rather than writing up something or maybe just taking it to show it at a club, they're showing it online, and they're not showing it to just 1, 3, 5 people. They'll be showing it to thousands of people up. In your bio in Instagram, you can use what they call Linktree. Linktree will link out to all your other social media platforms. So if someone wants to learn more, they want to learn about your website, they want to see your YouTube content, you can use this app, or it's like an app thing called Linktree. Now, I have found in my experience, Instagram doesn't particularly lead to, at the moment, to members. It's not leading to that, but what it does do is give really high exposure. If you're using it correctly, again, making sure those hashtags are being used and you're hashing it out, it will actually lead to high exposure. The more that some of the clubs and societies come on board with Instagram, and more that they incorporate Instagram into some of their club activities, and I don't know why they're not doing this at the moment. Maybe an art gallery style presentation night, an art night, whatever, get those pictures up there. Most of the content creators, if you approach them and say, hey, can I use your image? Most of them will say yes. They're pretty, they'll work with you. So yeah, think about that as well, how you can integrate that into your social media plan for your club or society. So at the moment, they're probably the 4 ones that I would recommend that if you're starting out, or you want to try and get more value out of online social media platforms, they would be the 4 that I recommend to focus on in your first 5 years. Yes, there is TikTok. TikTok's probably a little bit unstable at the moment with what's happening in the US and with relations with China. So it's not too sure what the long term is there, but we obviously know that people like Levin Parker are doing amazing work on there with TikTok. You've got Threads, which is like the Twitter version of Instagram. Threads. The Instagram version of Twitter. I'll get that right. Twitter's gone. I've found that Twitter's gone a little bit weird at the moment since it's changed hands of ownership. I don't find it as reliable as it used to be unless you actually pay and subscribe to it. So I've cut back a lot of the use there because what I used to get in terms of traffic has changed dramatically. But that changes again. So, you need to keep your eye on some of these things and see where things are. But these 4, they should keep you in good stead for the next few years.